I am too legit. Like MC Hammer, I am too legit. Like MC Hammer, I am too legit. Like MC Hammer, I am too legit.
Yo, it's another Doom Man freak. Yeah, you're listening to another music production.
I had hard times, real hard times. Swear I had to grind, swear I had to grind. Swear I'm losing memories. I'm too focused on my enemies.
With a song dark, booming song for your car. Song dark, me beg you easy start. Song dark, you know we crisp and clear. We don't want no fuss, no fight, we don't need no tribal war. Song dark, booming song for your car. Song dark, me beg
There's
you
no flower.
easy start.
You know what?
Song dark,
Flower.
You didn't bring one in?
No.
we don't want no
Oh, you know,
fuss,
you
no
have
fight,
to?
we don't need no
I
tribal
will.
war.
I'm in charge now. I'm the
I
boss
was gonna
now.
do now.
What it costs
Hmm?
now.
What am I to do?
Now.
You know the reason, man. I'm getting on live now.
When you ain't got
I'm
money,
not
gotta
here.
scramble up.
I'm locked
When
in.
I'm moving now, money too ample. For the record, this is sample. What I can't do, my nigga, what you can't do. When it come to this money, I'ma trample. Anything moving if you can't do. This is a massacre, I swear to God, I'm losing it. I just gave you the way, what you do with it. My last few bars, they've been proving it. Like MC Hammer, I am too legit. 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 Trapping ain't dead, these niggas scared. I can see you in my rear when I'm switching gears. Living fear, headlights and gears. This is trouble music, I'm steering to it. I want you to hear what you feeling to it. I'm waves to the grave, I'm the realest out. Western body flow, this without a doubt. When they yell, wavy wave, what they screaming out. Even in the drought, I still had clout. My name is Wavy Wave, what you talking about? I'ma take her out the beat, I'ma eat her out. Treat her like a bee when it's about to drop. Like MC Hammer, I am too legit. 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 For my trappers in the ghetto trying to find a plug. When you up, that's the only time they show you love. When you down, nobody wanna be around. Even when I'm in your town, I'm not in the
Some
town.
man think them rough, and I man rougher. Some man think them tough, wave it tougher. Some man think them hard, they hit harder. We the wolf we corner like a weed farmer. Firm, get up early, we don't look no harm. We don't smoke no coke, we don't smoke no dope, we don't smoke it, no sherm. Stick with the connect, we not thief, we burn. Don't be a concern. Ashes to ashes inside of our urn, we don't forget things. You never ever learn. Me the whole my corner, me and my girl in Laverne. Did you hear that? Who they just get fit? Them better just wear it. We know where the bodies are buried, that we make them build the pit.
Like MC Hammer, I am too legit. Like MC Hammer, I am too legit. Like MC Hammer, I am too legit. Like MC Hammer, I am too legit.
Yo, it's another Doom Man freak. Yeah, you're listening to another music production.
I had hard times, real hard times. Swear I had to grind, swear I had to grind. Swear I'm losing memories. I'm too focused on my enemies.
With a song dark, booming song for your car. Song dark, me beg you easy start. Song dark, you know we crisp and clear. We don't want no fuss, no fight, we don't need no tribal war. Song dark, booming song for your car. Song dark, me beg you easy start. Song dark, crisp and clear. We don't want no fuss, no fight, we don't need no tribal war.
I'm in charge now, I'm the boss now. What it costs now, ain't no loss now. I do this for my trappers and my gamblers. When you ain't got money, gotta scramble up. When I'm moving now, money too ample. For the record, this is sample. What I can't do, my nigga, what you can't do. When it come to this money, I'ma trample. Anything moving if you can't do. This is a massacre, I swear to God, I'm losing it. I just gave you the way, what you do with it. My last few bars, they've been proving it. Like MC Hammer, I am too legit. 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 Trapping ain't dead, these niggas scared. I can see you in my rear when I'm switching gears. When they yell, wavy wave, what they screaming out? Even in the drought, I still had clout. My name is Wavy Wave, what you talking about? I'ma take her out to eat, I'ma eat her out. Treat her like a bee when it's about to drop. Like MC Hammer, I am too legit. MC Hammer, I am too legit. Like MC Hammer, I am too legit. Like MC Hammer, I am too legit. For my trappers in the ghetto trying to find a plug. When you up, that's the only time they show you love. When you down, nobody wants to be around. Even when I'm in your town, I'm not in the
Some
town.
man think them rough, and I man rougher. Some man think them tough, wave it tougher. Some man think them hard, they hit harder. But they also weak corner like a weak farmer. Firm, get up early, we no look no harm. We no smoke no coke, we no smoke no dope, we no smoking no sherm. Stick to the connect in a leaf we burn. Don't be a concern. Ashes to ashes inside of our urn. We don't forget things you never ever learn. Me the hold my corner, me and my girl in Laverne. Did you hear that? Who the casket fit? Them better just wear it. We know where the bodies are buried, that we make them build it.
Good evening. I believe we're on. G. Michael Reed here from Belize City, the jewel by the Caribbean Sea. I want to invite you once again to our weekly podcast, Belize's fastest growing, hottest, most dynamic. We certainly have had a couple of exciting ones the last couple of weeks. Hot button issue, the whole Mayan land claim case. There's a decision from the court, not a decision, but a consent order that was given out. And we're starting to see now that there aren't only Mayans who are looking for that, but many Mayans who are against that. They believe that land gives them a step up. They're able to maybe mortgage their land, get a loan, do some things for themselves. The communal land project has a lot to be explained. We are not quite clear on how they're going to do it, what's the procedures that are going to be followed, who will control the finances and the wherewithals there, the resources. We have a history of lands down there being allotted and given out to like oil companies to drill and logging companies to remove stuff. And we are grateful to the Mayan for their part in doing that. As Belizeans, we would expect no less from them. Now, the rest of Belizeans, though, are a bit concerned when the Mayans are demanding land area exclusively to themselves. Many will remember the story about Rupert Miles, I believe was a gentleman's name, who went down there and tried to build a house. Of course, he was supposed to be doing that on land that was considered sacred land. So that there's a little caveat in that case. However, we know what happened there. And there's been rumors about people being attacked down there. We're hoping that that is not something that is done often. We are, of course, not a one-legged stool here. We have help. Greg Morrison from Los Angeles, Joe Corey from Belize should be checking in. And I see our guests are already coming into the building. Good evening, Gregory. How are you?
Good evening, Area.
All right. Aria Lightfoot, good evening.
Good evening.
Thanks for joining us.
I believe Jerome Strawn should be joining us soon, right? That's Dr. Strawn.
Yes, Jerome is supposed to be jumping on.
That will make for a very interesting show. Aria, we know that you have your own little talk show, your podcast that you do, correct? Tell us a bit about that.
It's on Creme Radio Television, and it's called Naval String Connections. And we really deal with the diaspora, specifically highlighting talents in the diaspora or Belizeans who are connected to the diaspora through business, or it could be anything. So what we try to do is do that connection and see how Belizeans are still very much connected at home.
Is it also on YouTube and Facebook, or is it?
It is on Creme Television Facebook page and on their radio and television aspect.
Wonderful. All right. What time does it come on? Let's get Ali plug for this. While we're talking about that.
It
What
comes
day
on
is it?
Thursday at 7:30 Belize time, which is 8:30 Eastern, 5:30 Pacific, then Mountain Central. But keep in mind, time is about to change, so the times will change a little bit. But it's 7:30 Belize time.
When we spring forward, of course. Yeah.
Yes, yes.
And we tried it for a while and we never did. It didn't work here.
Well,
So
Florida is actually stopping it after, I can't remember what year,
yeah,
but Florida is stopping the time change too.
it seems like there are more states than Florida, isn't there, that's contemplating that.
Yeah.
And California is looking to make it somehow permanent. I don't quite understand how that would work, but they're looking to put that change in permanently.
Daylight savings time would be permanent, so they would not be. They
Yeah.
would be staying forward and not going backwards.
That's correct.
Which, as a parent of kids who played sports, it actually is useful for sports because you actually get more daylight time and they get more time to play during the day. But they're saying that it doesn't matter anymore.
Yeah, and there are some people who are concerned that in the mornings it's too dark because they're not like the light going nowhere. If you're getting some in the evening, that you have to be taken away from the mornings.
Right.
So
right.
that should be interesting. Now, of course, the diaspora and Belizeans Belizeans in Belize and Belizeans in the diaspora have not always seen eye to eye. Are you seeing a bridging of that gap in some way?
I believe so. This year, we're planning a Belize Diaspora Summit in California in June. I think that people are now understanding that when people leave Belize, it's not because they didn't like Belize or didn't want to be in contact with Belize. A lot of people left for different reasons. It could be economic, it could be political victimization, it could be medical, students. I think one of the big issues is students because once your parents are taking out loans to send your children to school abroad, now you need to pay off those loans. And that's somewhat of a trap, I think, where in order to be able to pay it off, you have to be earning a certain amount. And another issue, I believe, is the ability to actually get positions people are qualified for just because of how our system is politically set up.
Do you see any progress in that area? Because I know that for a long time that has been the case. Politics run things in Belize. We know that. And if you kiss ass, then you get somewhere. If you don't, you will definitely be cancelled, for lack of a better word. Have you seen some progress in that area?
So I will say that the Prime Minister does have a business friendly, and I put it in quotes, because I don't think that has been developed enough as yet, but that's where it's going. What it does, it encourages people to be entrepreneurs. And let's hope that it's true entrepreneurship and it doesn't turn into political, sometimes even businesses are affected by politics. So if they truly develop an environment for entrepreneurship, you could get more private people coming in, creating their own business, providing employment. And let's hope that opens up to the Belizean people who have an affinity for Belize versus some capitalists, some venture capitalists that might not have the same affinity for Belize.
It will not be an easy thing to change, I'll tell you. It's too embedded, it's systematic. Let us hope. Let us hope from your lips to God's ears that something happens. Now, for the last 2 weeks, we've been dealing with this Mayan land issue matter. Do you have an opinion on that?
I actually do. And it might not be as popular as people think. I think it's much ado about nothing after reading the judgment, to be honest. And I think that there's an intentional misinformation from both sides. That's my opinion. After I read the judgment, because I was challenged with by someone whether or not I read it, I decided, okay, let me go back and read the judgment in full. Now, basically, what the consent judgment is that the government recognizes that the Maya are currently using a certain area of Belize, and it's based on their ancestral use, meaning that, and historically, this is how they live. So the judgment literally is saying to create a title, somewhat like a title to recognize a certain area as the area that they currently use. They can't go back and say, hey, before Christopher Columbus, this is our part my ancestors used to live. And the judge was very clear in stating that they are not creating a state within a state and that the government ultimately still controls it. And I'm just saying it from a realtor perspective because I study real. I'm a realtor, licensed realtor. So you look at it something like squatters' rights, and I know it's not necessarily comparable. You go, you sit on land for 25 years. You could go to the government and tell the government, I have developed this land. Nobody not chase me off of it. There's no owner that says they own it. I want title for this land. Similarly, what the court is saying that Belize does not have that type of title. Belize not have one title we call communal land. So now it tell the government go create one. So it no matter whether or not people want it or not, the government still have the responsibility for just create the title. And those who want it are going to say, my village wants it. Those who don't want it will say, my village doesn't want it. But to me, government can allow both things to exist. It's not impossible.
The
They
inter-
can,
an
they can,
interesting, go ahead. An interesting aspect in this is that you said two sides, but there seems now to be three sides because the Mayans themselves have two sides among themselves. Is
right.
that not then throwing a little bit more complication into the matter?
Well, I just think a lot of it is based on misinformation. Like whoever is telling them, the thing is, the word ancestral was in the judgment, but it was only used to describe why they are entitled to it today. I think some people are being mischievous and basically telling them, oh, uno own all abilities. Uno me there that's not what the judgment is saying. It's based on current use. And I think what happened now, because there's a lot of and it's a lot of mischief making. Some people think now a land grab. Oh, I own all this now. I could go out and just start to um, set one stake all over the place. The judgment even said that they have to respect other indigenous people who are there. And even if the Garifuna Creole, the Indians, the East Indians
Yeah.
are considered indigenous in the sense of their relationship to Belize, then it literally determines that they cannot go beyond what they're currently using. So me, I personally think now an easy fix. The government could take that 500,000 acres when they may give to the guy when they created the whole lawsuit and just declare the area communal land. And within that area, the people who want to have private land, I think it can coexist. To be honest, I think within our declared area, you could allow people for privately own within their own house, and then I would probably use the extra land where they plant and stuff as communal land, but they could do it. It's not impossible.
I hear you, but I don't know because see, and it sounds like something that we've been saying on this show that yes, they can do something to work it out, something sensible. though, see, if you have 41 villages that they're talking about, and they're going to put a line from the center of the village to what, 6 kilometers out, I think they're asking for now. But if those villages aren't together in one area, how does that work out?
So my thing is declare the whole 41 village area communal land. Because even within the villages, there will be people who agree and disagree.
Right.
Let the villages then after that work out where the boundaries lie within that communal land. That become how that could be had. But the court is literally telling them, create one title we call communal land. That's what the government is instructed to do. But again, I think this is my opinion. I could be wrong. The oil people, the capitalists are down there, and then they smell oil blood. And so there's a lot of misinformation that is being spread around the crowd. Because of that is why the government want to be able to control the area because of the potential relationship with investors who probably want oil. And then you have the Maya people that also want the benefit of the oil. And at the end of the day, there might be no oil there. I just think the fantasies, the dancing a lot of people head.
Mario is asking a question. Can you read the screen? He's asking if the appellants in the case are the ones spreading the misinformation. Who do you believe is spreading this misinformation? Is it the Mayans who want it, the Mayans who don't want it, the government that believes, the operatives, the business people, the oil people and land people, the loggers out there? Because everybody seems to have a vested interest in this matter.
So think about it. When I tell you something, it's all about how people internalize information. If you are explaining a very technical thing to people that don't have the legal background for understand it, you could be to explain it the right way, but the word ancestral get thrown into the mix, and then confusion begins. It's all about how then they internalize this information. And to me, it doesn't help. I will say this clearly. It doesn't help for basically rile people up based on their understanding of what you think they understand. To me, it is best to sit people down and ask them, what is your understanding of this? After you're done telling, you have to go back to them and say, what is your understanding of this? Because if they don't have the right understanding, even if you're telling them the right stuff, it opens itself up to mischief. And you might have people that say something the correct way, but I internalize it for me, and because I've read it online where people are like, well, my ancestors are the first people in this part of the world. And then they share when the Kibale say also, when the Kibale say, oh, the Mayas are the first people I believe, all I believe are for Mayas. So that is part to me of a lot of misunderstanding that's taking place.
So now we know who the mischief maker is. No, but let's introduce.
And I think sometimes he's just trying to look for new clients.
But in fact, he missed the one. Let's welcome Joe to the show, who himself has some strong opinions. Joe, how's the mic working this evening?
Well, I suppose it is working good. I'm hearing you all. I hope you are
doing well. Aria is in. Yeah. It is. But seriously though, we're not gonna stick to the Maya thing tonight because there's many other issues we want to cover. But it is a hot button issue, and I think if it doesn't get solved, it can blow out of proportion. You're saying, Aria, you think it's a no-brainer, that there's an easy way to solve it. It does not seem on the ground as if that is the case. The government doesn't seem to know what to do, and the Mayans themselves don't seem to be sure of exactly what they want. Like you said, some of them interpreted one way.
They know what they want. They want all.
I don't know that all of them do.
Well, we're talking about the leader of the MLA and the TAA. They seem to want much more. It seems like Area said, and as I've said in the past, it seems like a land grab. They're misinterpreting a lot of the facts and the information to position themselves, to kind of present to their people that they have entitlement beyond what the court had originally anticipated. Or
Without
even
doubt,
what was discussed. They said even what was discussed with the former Prime Minister Musa at some point as to how this was to be approached.
without doubt, there are a lot of agendas, and I can remember though Prime Minister Musa saying that we cannot allow any balkanization. So I don't know what kind of conversation he had with them that would give them the idea that they can get so much territory in Toledo. The way I see it, measure up indeed, which is going along the line that Aria is suggesting. We get a parcel of land down there, a size enough to accommodate the amount of Mayans down there, parcel it up, and if some of them want to do communal farming, then let them do that. If some of them want to have a title, let them do that. But somehow we have to work this out.
I hear what Area said, and I don't know how they could, because it seems like if they were to use those acreage that were allotted already, they would have to move people to create that communal land situation. I think people wants to stay, whether they're private land or communal land, people, they want to stay in the land they have used and occupied and lived for all the time they have been there, not to be moved to some separate place to create this.
No. I don't think you have to move anybody. I just think that you declare the whole 41 village area as communal land.
Oh, okay. I agree.
Within the communal area, you allow people to own privately their land in the sense of
yes,
houses that are not used communally. Nobody not use their house communally. Allow them to own the lot in their house.
Yes.
And then the farming, because it seems to be that the use of their farming and logging, that aspect would then become communal.
Yes.
Listen,
but you know what, the person that
countries, why the believe we always feel like everything hard? We just have to go make one group for the government.
Well, that's not fair. That's not fair. That happens all over the world. I know
But that's what I'm saying. But this has just gonna want next country to do it.
we tend to throw things from Belize, but all of it not the same. And the whole world, mess like that.
This is nothing new. This I know one new concept where come out of the. There are countries that
well, it's new to us. It's new to us, Aria. And those countries that you're talking about have the land mass area to allow for things like this.
But Belize.
Listen, there were no. We don't. Belize is a small country, Belize is a small place.
Over 5 million acres of land. We are one of the least populated countries in the world. We don't got more land issues.
We kind of like it like that there, We don't have no problem with that. No, I'll tell you what.
I wanted to just interject one thing. One of the problem I did see though was that even the council for the government, Mr. Marshall-Ek, was saying that for some reason private land could not coexist with communal land, which I thought was totally wrong.
Why not?
And I don't know how he could have so misinformed.
Well, not when the communal land people are claiming the public land. I mean, they doesn't seem they want the government to buy it from them.
There's no G-Mike, there's no need to do that.
Exactly.
The land is based on communal use. So if they're not to use the land communally, make those areas private, and the ones that are communally being used, just make it communal.
It's not new to us. They have been practicing communal land tenure. They just don't have legal security. I don't know how far back you're going, but I've been saying this too. If you're going that far back, they were also sacrificing people on top of those.
But it's not. But G-Mike, it's not even going back that far, and I think this is where the misunderstanding is coming from. It's based on current use. So if some village right now not use communal land, they actually have to show the government that they are currently using the land for communal use.
But Aria, listen to me. This is what I'm trying to figure out. You have 41 villages. I think that's the number.
Right.
But they're not in one space. They're not close together. They're all over the place. How does that work out? And what happens to the little pieces in between?
Declare it communal land. Just like how you could go and build
You
a
mean to clear the whole of Toledo
no.
communal land?
You have 41 villages and a lot of them
Right.
are very close together.
And that's
Are they, Joe?
That's
Yeah.
why Miss Valderrama said. Miss Valderrama had said we put a
understand.
circle around it and we create a zone out that goes beyond. So you do get a little bit of creep on it, and where the rest is not, where it doesn't matter or it doesn't make sense because other private land interests exist, then those remain private land. But if it's not private and it has a little creep and just a little space, then you make it contiguous and make it communal land. But communal land does not have to be contiguous. It does not.
No, it doesn't. But
Wouldn't it make more sense though if everybody is sharing in the same project, if you will? Wouldn't it make sense that they be close to one another?
Well, it will be based on how they are they're currently residing and how they are currently using it.
Because what were you gonna say?
What kind I wanted to ask a question. I happen to know that, yes, there are some farmyard villages in Toledo. Again, I'm just telling you that I have been in the village. I have been in that district for 2.5 years. I am familiar with every village that they have in there. Now, you have what you say, it is communal land. Firstly, I wanted to get an understanding clearly what you believe that the consent order meant by communal land, 1. 2, can you have a communal land where it is more than one? Because someone said just now that it's not you're going to take the 41 villages and they will all be within one communal land or one area. It seems to me then that if we define first what is communal, and someone said, well, it's your current use. But current use for what? Is it communal land for fishing, hunting, farming?
Or just owning?
So one of the problems I saw with the judgment, you're absolutely right, Mr. Koyi. There was no definitions in the consent, or it was actually a very poorly written consent order, in my opinion. There was no, normally when you're doing things, you will iron out the details. What is communal land? How is it described? They should have defined it, which to a certain extent they did, because they did give a history of what the use was. But according to the Mayas, they used the land because it started with 500,000 acres that was issued to some guy, Johnston, that has since passed on. And he was going in there bulldozing down the land. And that's what created the whole lawsuit, because they claim that they were using this land for their crops, to farm with their cattle, whatever they're using. That one fair, honestly, that one truly one fair argument.
Yes.
The thing is with it is that it has to be very. The problem that you're seeing that's going on down there is that because it wasn't clearly defined, and I just want to throw this in here. Florida, the state of Florida, based on common law, just like Belize, one of the things that they got rid out of their law is vagueness of legal writing. And it's very prevalent in Belize. The legal writing is the vagueness is very prevalent in Belize. So when you left people to for their imaginations, and when you left people for interpret what that means, it create conflict. Because now Mr. Koyi asked me a perfect question. What is communal? What is the use? What are all the uses for? And I think that the discussions from a mature perspective. And I want just do a little bit of history in our board, but the world has tried this. In England, they used to have the properties where people use communally. And historically, what it has shown is that it hard to get people to agree. And so under land law, whenever more than one person own land, it creates an automatic trust for sale, meaning that if any dispute happens, they are just sell the land and split the proceeds. But the problem with this is what I'm saying, the problem with the issue with the Maya is because they have this title that the government is supposed to create has never been done in Belize before. And they have to determine what part borders there. And I think that the way part some of the land grab begins, because I have seen videos and stuff with people that on people land, they do stake. That is not, they're not supposed to do that. Yeah. They are not supposed to go on private land. They're not supposed to go on somebody else's land and go determine that this is a communal land. They're not supposed to do it. It should be the government, because it is the government that is responsible for doing this.
What happened there? What happened there? Area was the government had a verifier that was part of the team, and for some reason the verifier got dated and he left the group, and so that verifier that was supposed to have been not on any side, but there as part of the government supervision, he got somehow scared out of his position, and so for like, except the first 3 months when they were doing the verification, after he left, there have been none, and so we don't really even know how legal the process has been conducted since he has left the supervision role, because he was supposed to have been part of that.
But the government today can create a title we call communal land title, and then figure out the rest later. And by just creating the title legally, they would satisfy at least that part of the judgment.
I don't know.
But
then they need to define it too, because
but it doesn't have to be defined by a specific land. When right now you have minister's fire title, then there's a legal definition for it. That doesn't have to be defined with one specific piece of land. They can create a title we call communal land title, and then when they figure out what part that actually, then they issue the title.
Yeah, I agree. There's nothing prohibiting that.
You know what scares me? What scares me is that in the 1940s, there were less Jews in Palestine than there were Mayans in Belize. So you see what happened over there. You see what is happening now. That how do you reconcile a communal land concept with a nationality, with a one Belize people moving together? We have the Mennonites now. They're secluded in certain areas where the Spanish lookout. What's the other one up north by Orange Walk? Blue Creek. So is the Creole next? Because the Creole has to be in there somewhere. That's what I'm saying. The Mestizos are going to do something. The Garinagu, of course. And the East Indians, you have Hindus now, and the Chinese are sizable. Are we going to just cut this up and get our own corners, or are we going to come together as one nation?
But that's what people do. They cut up land and call it private land.
Everybody, yeah, but not in that way. Not to the way where you're giving it all to just one particular ethnic group.
But you're not. This is based on current use. This is based on current use.
Well, that's the understanding you need to get across, Ari, and it's not coming across, in particular, not to the main people involved who are the Maya.
Yeah. Well, the way they present it is on traditional use.
But it's the right for communal land, the right that like squatters' rights. You get your squatters' rights because you have shown that you've squatted for 25 years. You get your communal right because you show that generationally this is how you have lived. That just want it is a entitlement for continue for use the land. I don't want entitlement for start to grow and take over. And most communities in Belize, say for the Mennonites who bought their land, most communities in Belize would be buying their private land. I mean that
maybe they should buy theirs also. But just by virtue of them saying we were here before, when they cannot prove, you'd have to bring me some DNA testing for that. I don't see that.
But we know they're there because they're currently there. That's my point. They're there.
But we're currently here too.
But we as Creoles, we don't fish and hunt as a community where we bring
how many of the Mayan? How many Mayans do you think still live that traditional style, and how many have moved on?
And that's the point. In fact, that is really the point. The ones who do not live in that way are not entitled to communal land because it's based on using it right now. It is literally based on current use.
So you mean you're saying
you can't just say, "Oh, I'm there for my ancestors. I want communal land." It doesn't work.
But these other ones have said it. If they can say it and get it, why can't these others?
But because they actually live like that.
Allow me to say something here.
Go ahead, Joe.
I believe that we are creating some confusion in the sense that when you read the judgment, the 20-page judgment, it is because the two parties decided before they go through the trial, they will agree that this is what will be done.
Yes.
So the consent order came after they had left the appeal court in Belize.
Yes.
And went to the Caribbean Court of Justice.
Yes.
Now, it is when they were going there, before they gone for a trial, which the government was opposing the idea of communal land, turn around and decide, let's agree on it. And that's how the consent order came. So what all the court did was indeed uphold the consent order.
They just stamped it.
They did more than just stamp it, but go ahead, Mr. Koi.
No, they did more than just literally stamp it.
They made a few little statements on it, but they did not put anything in position.
That differ, not because I think we all read the 20-page judgment. It was really not a long, it wasn't lengthy. It was basically to indeed give the legal support to the consent order. And the consent order was not the court decision. The consent order was a consent order by the two, what was the conflicting parties?
Yeah.
Had agreed to this. So all the court was doing was said, fine, they kept out the consent order and then made a ruling as to how they had to go about doing it.
And the lawyers took their money and went home.
Yeah. But the only other thing that the court did separately was the reparation.
Yes.
And that was your judgment. Now, the point I wanted to make is this. It seems to me, and I know this for a fact rather, that the government at the time saw the difficulty in implementing the concept of communal land. The government knew that we had subscribed and signed on and ratified the convention when it comes to the human rights for indigenous people. So we were bound, indeed, to carry it out once it met that convention. But the government knew, and I was in that cabinet where we sensed that this thing will be extremely difficult to implement. So therefore, there was a consent order done to try to bring the two parties together. I am trying to understand from what you all are saying. We are talking about some very general concept, communal land, current use. But this is not easily susceptible to any precise definition. It's not.
And Mr. Koi, right.
Difficult. So it's not an easy thing to do. No, it's a fact that the same Indigenous Human Rights Convention have been carried out in other countries with simplicity. And I think the chairman made the point. You had the case in Brazil. Because of the vast amount of lands, it was easy for them
And
to take.
also the remoteness of where those people
Well,
had
yeah,
resided.
Belize
but
have those
the point,
similar realities.
the point I'm trying to make, if you allow me to finish the point, then I will pull back again. If you have this amount of people, 10,000, whatever they are, have been living in an area where nobody is in between them, it is easy for say, well, okay, demarcate communal land, which happened in Brazil. That was easy to do. But when you take the land space in the Toledo district with 48 villages, which are sparse, they are not running into the other. So to me, I can sense when you talk about current use, what is current use for 48 villages? Is it current use of the rivers? Is it current use of hunting?
The forest, yeah.
It can't be current use for the Milpa system, because that would be very extravagant and wasteful. The Milpa system has gone. So you cannot be doing that and have lands for that, because that would be wasteful. So we need to know, well, what is this current use? What is it that you want the land for? And if you have all these villages, some of them so far apart, so the government knew then that it would be difficult, but they consented. Here lies the problem now, to implement. And it's not so easy to implement. And what's make it even more difficult is that you have too many of them don't want communal land.
Well, that's the bigger problem. That's a big. Now you're talking about the Milpa farming, the slash and burn, where they
Well,
just.
the question to Enan is this: can someone begin to tell us, who knows about it, what is this current use?
And Mr. Koye, that's why it's difficult, because I spoke about the vagueness of the law. They should have never signed this consent order without clarity of what it means. And I'll be honest with you, one of the problems with the Mayas that I see, they'll have a very difficult time to prove current use without people following them around for maybe 6 weeks or 2 months or maybe a whole year to prove that their current use involves going through all these different areas. So honestly, what the government should do, the government needs to iron out a better definition. And at this point here, it's like I said, part of the problem is some of the people that you're speaking to don't have a good idea about legal concepts. And so when you send an attorney in to describe a legal process, because really it's just a legal process, and then somebody can interpret it behind the attorney that is not necessarily the right way to say, you get to a lot of misunderstanding. And I feel like that is what's going on. It's really one level of misunderstanding. And I believe that communal land can exist with private ownership. I think that's I think that
It's
the
only
whole
way it could exist.
Say that again, Greg.
No, so that's the only way it could exist. It has to exist
they have to
outside
create a coexistence with private ownership.
But your thinking and your opinion certainly is not gelling with the reality on the ground. And unfortunately, not everybody seems to be thinking along that way. That is the problem we're having.
Exactly. I want to comment on that, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead,
because I put your finger on the problem. So I think what will happen is that they will reach a point, which I think the attorney had said himself, that is Mr. Marshall. I think they will reach a point where they will not be able to resolve it, but they will go back to the court.
Yes.
And then the court will have to make a determination indeed of what will be practical to implement what was in fact something more conceptual.
Well, honestly, the court
pointed out the consent orders was as a result of avoiding a case at the Caribbean Court. And in doing that, there was not enough clarity, there was not enough precision, The wording was vague, and now they're finding the problem. So I think what will happen, they will reach a point where this is as far as we can go. Let's go back to the court. I think they will have to go back to the court.
Well, I think the court was very clear in their understanding of what communal land is. I think who is not clear is the government and the Maya people. One have one understanding, the other group have one separate understanding.
Two understandings the other group has.
And that's why,
Two
that's why they'll have to go back to the court to clarify, to have the court.
Did the court say not come back here? Did the court say?
No,
No,
the court
but
says to come back.
the communal land has a definition. It's defined by the conventions that has been signed. And this is where you have to take one technical team, take them to an area that has done this before. Forget Brazil, that is remote, but go to an area that you see that it has been done before, and then try to use best practices. And the team should be government leaders.
Can you name one for us, or do you know anyone?
Yeah, any other places, other than Brazil.
I'll use Florida again. Florida, we have Indian reservations.
Yes.
Which
they
is
behave very similar.
Yes. And within the Indian reservations, they have that way you'll find all the casinos. Like once you enter in Indian reservation in Ghana.
Can we follow a course where we feel like we are making headway? One, let's stay on what you were saying. I thought you break up a good point. I want to know, where can we find a situation that is not identical but similar to the Belize situation?
Right.
Which country has that?
I think
you can't use America.
Of course.
America. I don't, but they have too much land. Yeah, they're too big also.
Belize have Belize not got land shortage, and I know that a common thing where people think, but Belize does not have. You know,
we don't have land shortage. I forgot what the population density is, but it's probably less than about 30 people.
What I'm asking us to do, which I believe is the problem. I am saying that we can say that Belize has a lot of land. That's relatively speaking to the population. But we don't have that amount of land like some other countries have.
Yeah.
It just happens that Belize population.
We really do.
But
you see the size of Belize area?
Let me point out something that's a little bit more treacherous.
Population is a sparse population. Sparse.
You need to get every Belizean 10 acres of land. Every living Belizean right now.
I will give you an example.
Let me point out something.
Barbados has about the same population like Belize.
Yes.
But Barbados is smaller than Belize.
Yeah. They're little.
So you find that Belize has a sparse population, and relatively speaking, we can say we have a lot of land. But that's only because we have a small population that is sparse.
So
but Barbados have far less land than us, but have the same population more or less.
Okay.
I want to come down to the point where, for anyone to believe that the implementation of that court order, that consent order, which was indeed endorsed by the court, believe that that is something that's simple to implement, I want them to tell me how to do it. That's not easy to.
I think.
Well, you're speaking about Aria. Aria might be the first person I'm hearing saying that she thinks it's simple to implement.
I really think it is. I think it's much ado about nothing, and what the conflicts that are really misinformation.
It's because of greed. But let me point out something that my friend.
Greg, I agree with you there.
Yeah, let me point out something that my friend Leonard has been saying, mentioning. He's been saying that a lot of the land where the Mayans are right on the border with Guatemala, and therefore we have to be careful about making sure that those land within that area and within certain area of the border does not become communal land. Those need to be national territory so that the government can do whatever functional duty they need to patrol and protect our borders. So that is one of my concerns.
Mr. Morrison, I would like to take an objection. I don't believe we have any evidence to support these people being sinister they're being greedy, they're being dishonest. I don't think that is the situation. I think all the parties, the majority of them into it, I think are sincere, but they are sincerely wrong in a sense. No, that's a real.
I'm not arguing that point. My point is that the border. Mr. Curry, my point.
That point is taken. That point is taken. But at the end of the day, too, a lot of these Guatemalans did come over. If we listen to Dr. Awe, come over from Guatemala.
Yes.
And many of them are looking at that as no border. They figure that the whole area for them. How come then they have not gone over to Guatemala and demand the same thing?
But listen, let me just say that the consent order.
If we begin to say that they are sinister, they are greedy, they are this.
I'm not saying any of that. That's your words. I'm not saying that.
I will say that there are some land grab ideas.
Oh, they're greedy. They're greedy. There is land grab, but and I don't believe the benefit of it will be to the majority of the Mayan population. It will be to whatever management elite they have that's going to be running things. I don't think the majority. And the danger I see is that as we make this thing more practical and workable, we'll have a more stream of Guatemalan
coming over. You think
Mayan citizens coming into Belize.
But Greg, let me say this. The judgment was very clear that says you cannot create a nation within a nation, and that the government still controls the area.
Yes.
So with that being said, and we know that, and I could tell you this, right now there is a road that goes from Spanish Lookout to Orange Walk. To get to that, they have private landowners. You need a permit to get to Orange Walk if you want to take that road because you're driving through private land. I tell you that I just want a title definition of the use that they're using right now.
How good is the road? How passable is it?
It's, people say kind of rough, but there is a road, and that's what I'm saying. This I just want title. That like one land title, and it's just a communal land title. They're not going to be able to ban anybody from entering the area. They still have to work with the
if you listen to MLA, they want you to get permission to enter their private property.
Right, and it's just like private. If right now, if I buy 500 acres of land and I start to farm it and do everything with it, you would still come to me as the private landowner and say, "Can I enter your land?" This I just want this I really want title that they're telling the government to create,
Yes, no, I understand, but I'm saying there need to be within that land that is trafficable, roads and stuff that all people have access to, even though that your communal land exists.
We're not the police. They have private land. Why we have police to buy land?
But no,
you have to.
But you don't have to.
Yes, we do.
Who the police it right now? Nobody.
The police.
They're under the laws of Belize.
But they will remain under the laws of Belize.
But that means there will have to be some policing of it.
But that like your private land. If I can't just go on your land without ask you.
Aria, let me ask you a question. Forget the fact of how easy you think it would be to implement.
I don't say easy to implement.
All right, you said it's a no-brainer. You said it would be.
The title part is easy.
All right. Do you think it's a good idea what the Mayan are doing, and do you think in the long run it's gonna be work out in the best interest of all involved?
I think that it's not a big deal. The Mennonites are doing it. There's been no issues with them doing it. They're private landowners, and they came in as complete strangers to Belize, and they've been a very productive group for 60 years. That would be my comparison to it. Then when you go to Spanish Lookout, nobody not to prevent you from entering into Spanish Lookout because they're still doing business with the Belizean citizens. So they're still open for
when you're driving through Spanish Lookout, do you have to go and get permission to enter that to go and do?
You don't, because they have businesses in Spanish Lookout that's open
Okay.
to the public. But I
Okay.
can't drive up Mr. Penner yard or something if I have to
I'm
stay.
saying I'm driving on someone. I'm talking
Right.
about the roads. Who build those roads? Isn't it the government of Belize that build
No,
those roads?
the Spanish Lookout, I'm pretty sure that they're not the one who build and maintain their roads.
Okay. Well, if it's a private community, then that's the case.
I think about it as a private community. They're just saying, and these are the best way for describe it. They're saying they have established quarters rights, and now they want the title to it. That, to me, that the easiest way that Belizeans would understand it.
But that's
Well-
not what happened, though. In the case of Spanish Lookout, that's not what happened.
Well, I know not in Spanish Lookout, but I'm
the
saying the
Lookout-
Mayas, why
Well,
they're
Spanish Lookout-
entitled to it.
But
No, Spanish Lookout is not an example of
but
trying to
just
solve.
think of the case where they
I am familiar with the Spanish Lookout case. I was around at the time when the government agreed to it. That's a totally different case.
But I'm saying about how they live. They live
I want
communally.
back to, because I thought that we were on a good track for a moment. We are saying, that the difference is there was a court order based upon a consent order. I think where we are differing on is that you may think it not too difficult to implement. I see it very difficult to implement. No, I am saying that if we remove away the sinister motives that we have in mind about greed and this and whatnot, and take the court order, we have read it. Now, let's see how we're going to implement it. I have gone through it. I listened to the groups involved. I listened to the lawyer, the chairman. I listened to the minister. I spoke with the chairman himself. The lawyer himself. And I sense that it is a problem to implement. Now, it seems to me that if on this show, we can try to find a way to see how we could implement it. And we may come to the realization, indeed, that order might not be able to implement. But the only way we can come to that is if we try to find a way to do what the court says, and then we can come to realize that we may not be able to do it, and you have to go back to the court.
that kind of contradictory there, because you're saying we're gonna find a way over do it, but we can't do it.
Ask all of you guys one
Let me
question.
clarify exactly what I'm saying. It's not being contradictory. I am saying that the discussion to me was centered around the implementation of the order.
Right.
There is the belief, and I think the chairman holds that belief, that this order apparently cannot be implemented. I hold the belief that, to me, what I know about it so far, and I try to learn everything about it, that is extremely difficult to implement. Aria, lady, holds a different opinion.
No,
She
I
believes,
never said implement. I said it is easy for them to create the title. Create a title we call.
But wouldn't that be the implementation of it?
No,
once you get
because-
a title of it, that's not what they want.
and that's my concern about
no,
giving
but the question of a title is nothing. That's simple. That is
That's not what I mean.
Let me tell you how you can create the title. Under the Registered Land Act, which we adopted some years ago, all of those things with fiat, conveyance, all of them. As soon as an area is declared a registered area, you have to do your first registration. And eventually, it will come to an end. But it may take 50 and more years to finish it. We adopted that many years ago based on the same British Registered Land Act. And that is in the process. So if tomorrow the government and the parties involved can agree to communal land, you can easily devise a title under the communal land how to do it. That is not the problem. That's simple.
But that's what the court is telling them to do.
No. The problem is not that. The problem is how do you demarcate the land?
Well, that comes afterwards.
Problem.
But Belize has nothing in its legal system we call communal land title. We don't got that in our
Aria, again, how can that come after? How can you
Because-
give them the land and then decide what you're going to give them afterwards?
No. We don't misunderstand.
Right.
Creating the title is not giving them the land. Creating the title description of what communal land is just a legal process.
Now,
Afterwards, Let
So
me
you
give
have to
you an
no.
example.
You
Right
can't
now,
give a title unless you demarcate a land. That's impossible to give a title
but
to
you have to get the title for give them. You have to get the
no,
legal paperwork.
no,
to
no,
give them.
that's no. You cannot give a title without demarcating a land.
But you could have the title and the law.
You
Then you
know,
go demarcate it.
Land.
you know what?
So
Why,
that's
Let
what
me
I'm
give you a perfect example. Let me just give this example. G Mike, if you go squat pan land right now for 25 years, right? How do you gain squatters' rights?
well, you go to the court
And what?
and file for the title for the
But how
land.
do you prove that you made take care of this land?
Well, but you have to prove somehow that you have developed it and brought, and nobody has contested your presence on the land.
And that's what it is. That's literally what it is.
But you know what though? Funny thing, because if the Mayan
I don't
now,
think it's that straightforward.
it's not cut and dried for sure.
But that's quite right.
I think Aria is simplifying it a bit, and it cannot be simplified like that.
It can't be that now.
But it is. So the thing is, we are such a fighting people.
Why not think that? No, keep on the put we down like that, man. That's not true. Everybody fights in a thing like that. But the situation is the Mayans are there. Now, they're looking at this as before even borders were drawn. Oh, we've been here from since then. We the whole Mesoamerican era.
That is just their establishment of their so-called squatters' rights.
But that's what they are using as a premise for their contention, their argument.
But they have now established it because the government has agreed. So that's not even the argument anymore. The argument that for prove current use, that you have to fit within this definition, and that the way they have to prove that they're currently using this land as communal land.
So Aria, what
government need for create the legal definition of what communal land is to help with the demarcating and deciding what it is to establish it.
So if they can create that, they can create how they want to. They will put it in whatever context they want to. Is not correct?
They can't, because the government is the one who will make the decision.
Well, so what I'm saying is that the government will make that decision, and they are one of the parties involved. So I don't know if that can happen like that. I really, at the end of the day, I see this as just a divisive thing. I see it as them wanting land that they already own. They are Belizeans. This land is for all of us. And I had the argument with this young boy the other day on this show where he was telling me about how they were here so long. I was born twice the time he was born. So I was here longer than him. And I'm saying every Belizean that is born in Belize has the entitlement for citizenship. You cannot have a privileged citizenship for anybody. In particular, somebody that just comes up and say, oh, I was here so many hundred thousands of years ago. Prove it. Really prove it.
So that is not what it's saying. And I think that where the misinterpretation is coming up. Yes, the Mayas were here before Columbus, without a doubt. We have borders today, and they are still required to fit within the Constitution of Belize. The judgment said that. So all the argument with me there before, that is, it no matter. They have to prove current use, and we have to define what communal land is.
All right, but we also have to define what is current use.
Yes.
What are they doing? What kind of, are they farming? Are
Yes.
they fishing?
Yes.
Are they?
And I think that the way Mr. Koyi brings up an excellent point, that now we need to figure out what is current use. Are they farming on it? Are they hunting on it? Are they planting on it? You could tell based on some of the videos that I've seen that some of their land, nobody know they do nothing on it, but they have to prove it. And that way I think they're trying to pressure the government in a way for make them just accept it. This is what we say, accept it.
Or you're anti-Maya.
Right, right. Because they cuss me up. And I'll be honest with you, I have supported the communal land issue And they cussed me up because I was against the way that they were riling up people, and they thought, well, we're going to come into your homes and we're going. I mean, all that is unnecessary.
You're talking about the Maya.
Yes,
About,
and it's divisive.
It is
And
divisive.
it leads to a lot of misunderstanding. And that's why I have said publicly that this has to now enter the hands of professional and technocrats, because the politicians and the emotional people on either side can't do it. It is that one very technical process.
Aria, can you understand the skepticism of people when you say, let's put it in the hands of the technocrats and people who are that everybody seems to be for sale, and that in fact we're looking now at some very important court orders that are quite suspect, and you want to know if somebody had to get paid for this.
No, I don't think, I don't even think that. I really think it is something where we have people who are professionals, we have people who can do the research, and we need people for going at the bush and spend 1 year at the villages them and determine what current use looks like.
You see, also too, then comments up, and some of them are not staying up too long. But how dare them? The audacity of threatening people. They just because I don't agree with you does not mean that I am against you, or that you're being an enemy as such. But the fact is, we are trying to we're trying to debate this and come to understanding based upon logic, not
Right.
emotion, not raw passion, reason,
Well,
logic.
and listen, that was part of the reason why I made a comment about riling up people, because the head of MLA or whatever, she literally went there and told people for hold people accountable, hold this one, we're going into your homes and all that stuff. So now you have all their fake profiles. Anybody that has anything that doesn't fit within a certain narrative, they're starting to attack
They
people
attack them, yeah.
and
Yeah.
it doesn't help with the process.
Well, it
It
not
doesn't
only doesn't help, it will hurt a lot, because the people on the other side can also be aggressive. They
I
aren't the only
agree.
one. You know, the interesting thing here is that the Maya have not been persecuted in this current age of Belize. I don't remember anybody talking. Gary Nagu can make that claim, because certainly they were persecuted and prejudiced against.
I
But the
think
Mayan
all
really
I
have
think
pretty
all
much been left
are
alone.
persecuted. I think we one of the things when we became independent, whenever legally address colonialism, whenever get rid of some of the colonialist laws, whenever deconstruct the system, whenever try rebuild with people, we still perpetuate the same colonial narratives, the same lesson plans, and I think that I think this
That kind of vague. That kind of vague. Let me. All right. We'll get back to that. Let me welcome Dr. Strand to the program. Mr. Jerome Strand, a sociologist. I understand. Is your claim to fame? What you want to? Which very interesting. We have the second part of the show will be interesting. Aria, I didn't want to end that segment on that, but really, Jerome, do you have an opinion about the Maya land rights?
Well, I mean, I've noted two things. One was Christina's comment, of course, right? This seems like it's fiery rhetoric. And I also noted the comment made on your show about 3 weeks ago by her sister. What I've been kind of writing about in the last couple of weeks is kind of look how at the evolution of Mayan identity in probably since the early 80s, right? Since Julian Cho came on the scene, the MLA, the Toledo Mayan Council, how Mayan sort of identity went from sort of a weak sense of identity, them knowing they were kind of looked upon as sort of backwards, right? And then gradually, they develop a sense of pride in their Mayan identity. And they had sort of, I don't know if you guys have, in terms of the Dubois book on the souls of black folks, right? He talked about the talented tent. You had more and more Mayans being educated. You have Julian Cho going abroad and getting a bachelor's degree and sort of starting to sort of encourage sort of Mayan pride, right? And then you go on, you have Christina, her sister is also educated. And I kind of looked upon all these different things in terms of how Mayan identity is being fostered, right? By NGOs played a role, right? They have pumped in a lot of money. Also, the group itself, right? A lot of Mayans have moved out of the Toledo district, which a lot of people have highlighted, right? That at the same time this Mayan land rights issue is occurring, you also have a lot of Mayans increase mobility, going to different parts of Belize. You also have mobility. People are teachers, they're working, they're parts of BDF and so forth. So that's one of the things that I looked at. And most recently, I kind of look at how movements, right, get sort of radicalized, or you have the fire radical. You had that in the United States, right, with Stokely Carmichael, right, and sort of articulating Black power, right, and the frustration that sort of the more radical wing of the civil rights movement felt when they felt like, racism is really not changing and so forth. And so I look at, there's not a change in the Mayan name, but there's a sort of Aria once said, it's a sense of entitlement. And you also mentioned that sort of the judgment, right? The court, sort of the CCJ judgment is kind of looked up and held like it's the Holy Grail.
Right.
So you have a lot of people now feeling emboldened, and not everyone within the Mayan community, because we've seen what happened at San Pedro, Colombia, right? They represent a different kind of Mayan identity, right? Christina and others within the MLA and the Toledo the council, I guess they represent a different view of sort of Mayan identity, right? But for me, what is sort of is being lost, I wouldn't really say it's being lost, because we had sort of that coalition of Creole and other, Creole East Indian group that came on this show and also had a press conference late in 2023, which should make people aware of the significance of sort of the rupturing of sort of this Belizean pluralism that we had forged, right? That, as you mentioned in a previous show, no one has sort of extra rights, right, and privileges, and that we are all the same, right, and so forth. And that, I don't know, we'll have to configure that. I don't know how that's going to work, but I don't think that has been kind of more emphasis has to be on that. And
I think it should be highlighted indeed, because we are Belize, first of all. That has to be an important thing. And many of these Mayans seem to not look at themselves as Belizeans first. They are Maya, and they're supposed to be aside. And that is a problem that I have. What I'm saying to you, and I want to repeat this, is that in my time, we were never taught to dislike the Maya or treat the Maya as anything less than other Belizeans like us. They were another ethnic group. Belize has many ethnic groups. All of us, I believe, have a right to this country. And if we look at it as a Belizeanness, we can move forward. If we are going to be everybody to do their own thing and in their own corner, then it causes a problem.
But you really have to note. I mean, I kind of focused on this San Pedro, Colombia meeting. What was it, last Sunday? Although they say, oh, it wasn't as well attended, but Mr. Marshall from the government and other representatives within the village said, you know what, for this village, that's a lot of people that turned out. So they have a different perspective on this whole issue, right? And I mean, again, just returning to the issue of identity, right? To look at whether they're seeing themselves as Belizean first, or they're seeing themselves as Maya first. what I sort of saw in a lot of the leadership is Belizean identity is deployed at certain times, right? So, for instance, if you want to sort of dismiss the whole balkanization claim, then you'll say, you know what, I'm Belizean first. Or if you want to say, well, you know what, you guys are separatists, it's like, yeah, well, you know, we're Belizean and we use the Belizean constitution. That's how we got how we are, where we are right now. So it's kind of, you're using sort of its national identity is deployed at certain times and sort of an enhanced ethnic identity, right? Because now we're talking about the Maya people and you have a pan-ethnic identity and sort of, although last week you had or 2 weeks ago, the lady and the other gentleman, they said, well, I'm Mopan, right? Although people were kind of looking at them and saying, oh, you're sellouts and are you really Maya because you're not for this Mayan land rights thing? And they asserted their sense of identities like I'm Mopan and so on, right? But for a lot of people, they sort of, okay, it's kind of, you get a lot of energy by saying, you know what, we're Maya first. So you use these different sense of identity at some times. The other times you also
when
have
it's convenient. When it's convenient, which is something disingenuous about that.
Yeah.
And another way in which identities are being used is, for instance, probably a couple of years ago, and we've seen this, is that when, although the Mayans, and one of your guests from last week spoke about, you know, when Christina goes abroad, she speaks about, she presents the most traditional view of the Mayas. You know, this is essential to her survival. And there's this magazine, Indigenous magazine, Cultural Survival, and there are a lot of articles on the Belizean Mayan. And it's like, oh, well, we use, and they do, you know, we use the land to hunt and we use it to farm and we use it to fish, and without the land, we are nothing, and so forth. And so that view of the Mayas, the most traditional view, is presented to an international audience for consumption. And I'll use the word woke in the right way, unlike conservative.
Right, when they turned it into be, yeah.
Yeah,
but Jerome, Joe has made the point that nobody's stopping them from using the river. Nobody's stopping them from fishing or farming. And this is, they're putting that in a context as if they're being held back from doing these things when they're not. As Belizeans, they have every right to do it.
They were, because the government issued a lease for 500,000 acres. This is where the lawsuit came
Which
from.
now we should want to know how that come about.
Stopped and killed, and I do believe that was wrong, and we all agree that.
And if they did go to court to assert their rights, they wouldn't have it, and that's the thing. There's nothing wrong with asserting your rights under the Constitution.
Again, we all appreciate the work they did in stopping that. I believe, and this takes us to a Senate inquiry committee that's underway now, where we saw the person from lands go up there, and Mr. Barrow represented him, stop the people from asking him or telling him, well, you can't ask him about this and you can't ask him about that, when something like this 500,000 acres of land that was given out ought to be asked about. How did you do this? Who got money from this? Who authorized you to do this? Did this go before the House? So there are a lot of things you have to look at that's part and parcel to the entire problem. We might need to break it down one piece at a time and figure it out, no?
Yeah.
I think that what Dr. Strachan says is very true. There's a lot of identity issues that are going on. And I think what has happened, you know how, and I said this as one Belizean, you know how we are very sensitive to anybody in Belize not identifying as Belizean. And I think that is where I know this is very tough, but if you look at the whole colonial aspect of it, right? Just from a colonial perspective, the people were living in this region of the world, and here comes the British, Spanish, and different European countries, that displaced and committed genocide against Sayan people. The ones that did survive, the Maya specifically, actually had an agreement with the British government at the time with the use of their property. The thing is with it, as I said, because we have not decolonized and we have not respected the fact that we're all groups within Belize that really have been disenfranchised by the British, especially with land.
I,
You'll find that, let me just finish. You'll
yeah, go
find
ahead, go ahead.
in the black communities, Creole communities, you'll find that our party have the lowest ownership of land because we were not encouraged as previously enslaved people to own land. And so a lot of value when it comes to land did not come within our communities. They had the groups that were excluded from the Creole communities, which were the Garinago and specifically the Mayas, and they had to survive on their land and the waterways. So this thing, they're not nothing for be afraid of. I'll be honest with you. Um, because after reading it, the court literally says that they have to do it based on their current use of the land. So as Dr. Sean said, the Maya that has left the village, he can't now go live that carousel and say that, oh, I am now claiming communal land because I'm a Maya and I am living communally. It doesn't work like that. And I
Yeah,
think
but
that
how do you keep a
misinformation.
census and tracking of all that type of
Um,
movement?
I'd like to also make a point. I was kind of reviewing several articles dealing with the Mayans. There's a guy by name of Dr. Wainwright that has done a lot of work and kind of reviewing the article. I have the Nigel Boland book on colonial resistance, and he has one article. And I came across this passage on one gentleman that was head of the Toledo Mayan Council by the name of Diego Bol, who had petitioned the government back in, I guess, the early 80s, and he wanted to create a homeland for the Mayas
Your volume, Dr.
before
Strawn,
the
your volume
case
went
even
really low.
started, the land rights case even started. And I think Julian Shaw succeeded him as head of that organization. So for some people, I think that sort of dream is still there, right? Another point, like I was saying, I want to stress is, okay, you have sort of a pan-ethnic identity, right? You have Mopan and Quechua. I mean, you don't really have you only have the Yucatan Mayan also, but you also have a transnational identity in sense of a kinship with Mayans in Guatemala, right? Quite often, there's no sort of difference, right? People once roamed across the borders freely, right, and so on. Is a sense of ethnic identity bind people, right? Although they have a Belizean identity, they have a transnational identity, right? They have and more specifically, an ethnic identity, right? And these things all play out. But I think also with this Mayan land rights issue, it puts a spotlight in terms of the community, not only in terms of identity, but mobility as well, right? We've seen a large percentage of educated Maya, right, and well spoken. And I shouldn't say that like, oh, like you're patronizing or whatever, but we saw in the village, you know, these guys are really well spoken, they're articulate, and so on. And you have more Mayan teachers. Certainly, the Garinago played a role in educating a lot of the Mayans, say 50 years ago. But now you have a large percentage of Mayan professionals, right? And so it's putting a spotlight, and it'll probably differentiate between different aspects of the community. One person that lives in Toledo that I'm not going to mention, and he was saying, oh, you know, this village, right, like San Pedro, Colombia, they don't want communal land rights. But then this Laguna or some other village that recently settled by the Mayas, they want land rights, right? And he was saying, oh, those people recently they're only like third generation Belizeans rather than people in San Pedro, Colombia, who are more assimilated. right? So we will probably learn a lot, and it'll be really interesting in terms of seeing the different patterns within the group. But that's of course notwithstanding that the Kali Association, the what is it called, the Toledo Maya Council, seem to have sort of I don't want to really say dictatorial. They have a lot of control, right?
Yeah.
And now there's not a lot of independence on the side of the alcaldes or so forth, and that's concerning.
But
That should
don't
be
you
a great
think,
concern.
don't
But
you
is
think,
Because
you've
people
given a
developing
large,
power base as well, I think.
given a
You know,
large,
and a
different,
platform. Once they have a power base, then they have a platform to speak on, and so on.
given the ethnic groups that we have in Belize, which are many, isn't it better we assimilate and there will be probably others coming at some other point? But shouldn't we have a program in place where people need to assimilate with the local population as opposed to drying off in a corner by themselves? And this is the danger that I'm seeing. And it's not the word afraid is not a good one. Concerned. We need to be concerned about that because and Belize might have land mass, but we are a small nation. For us to progress, we will have to work together. We will all have to come together in one Belizeanness as opposed to, oh, you the Maya, this the Garinago, this the Creole, this the Mennonites, this a Hindu. I mean, this a Chinese. It's ridiculous. We
But that's
cannot
all.
do that.
But everybody is Maya, Chinese, Garinago, Creole. That's their ethnic identification.
Yes, which is all right. And
It doesn't take away from them being Belizean. I'm telling you, this is like a squatter's rights claim. They're using the land. It's not expansive. They need for proof current use of what that land is. And I think that, to me, is where the biggest issues really lie.
so you think they just want some title to their land? That's it.
They want an area where they could say, this area, and I just want to use one throat figure. This 5 miles, right?
Right.
That we part we do communal use. We want to make sure that when the government they look for issue oil contracts or whatever, that this area is off limits. Period.
Aria, it should be, everything should be off limits with things like that. When the government is looking to issue that kind of concessions and whatnot, we must all be involved in that. The one Belizean thing, they already own Belize.
But think about it. If you have private land right now and the government wants to acquire your private land under the Constitution, the government has to pay you fair market value for your land. And that's what I'm trying to tell you. The law literally says that the government is still in control. So at the end of the day,
so if the government wants to reacquire this land,
they will have to pay them fair market value.
Sorry, I need to come in here. The government cannot acquire private land unless he can prove.
Public use.
And I finished. It must be for a public purpose.
Right.
And then when he can prove that, then is when they go for the settlement.
Yes. Thank you, Mr.
So all right, that means the government would not be doing that anyway. They have the same right like every other Belizean to own their land.
As anybody else who got private land, we got acreage. And listen, they got Belizeans who own hundreds of thousands of acres of land.
They ought not to. They ought not to. That's another matter. We need to address that also. We need to address that.
We now make one issue of the people there.
But we can't. You can't go with that whataboutism approach to it, though.
In reality, we are a country that promotes or practices private land ownership, and we practice some level of capitalism. And if that's the case, you can't say one man could own 500 acres of land, but you can't get a couple thousand people for make the declare one area where say, listen,
I don't think anybody is saying that. I don't think anybody is saying that. I think
that is not a fair. That's not a fair statement. I am saying to you, the solution I would have: figure the percentage of Mayans in that district, we are saying, all right, they were here before. They were here originally. We'll give them that. Get an area, and if who wants title gets title, who wants communal land can then come together as a cooperative and farm together, work together. But to say, okay, you want them 41 villages, demarcate them to 6 kilometers out, and then take all of them then, and all of that belongs to just the Maya, and the Belizeans have no access to that. A Belizean can't go there and own land.
No, the same one of the things, and I really think I should have tried bring Marshall on the show. But one of the things that he said, and I even think the Maya, some people misunderstood it, when they created that circle around the village, he was literally telling them, "On no need for prove the use at this area. We just want to accept that this area is part of the communal land. Then, if we want to go further than this area, we have to prove current use." So him to give them one given, because I tell you there's going to be a lot of people who cannot prove communal land. It'll be very difficult for prove it.
Which is going to be another
right now, you see the problem have run awry, because what they have is just Mayan people walking around demarcating land.
And even Marshall brought that up, that they are not allowed to do that. So they do not demarcate land. Government does.
So maybe they don't understand fully what is happening either.
The government have neglected to carry out its responsibility.
And maybe that's some of the discussions that we need for talk about.
Yes.
Because they are entitled to it. And I will tell you, think about it, like how all the Central Americans come over, come squat on land, and they get in the title to the land, and nobody don't make an issue of it.
But see, the whataboutism, it's not fair.
But it's the law. It's not about fairness. It's legal.
No, I don't mind Mayans getting communal land.
I don't think any. Well, I don't mind them getting land.
It's the claim. It's the proportion of the claim that is an issue.
But we don't know what that claim is, Greg. It's like
we don't know. We don't know in total.
They don't know either. They don't know. We know it's substantial. We do know it's substantial.
We have some idea when they said that, when some people say that it's 90% or 60 or 75% of the district that falls under the communal land claim.
75% of the district. We know that. We have a whole Toledo where they don't there. That is not the case, and most of their places are.
We know it shouldn't be. We know it shouldn't be, but that's why the group is concerned about.
Can I comment to the German to see some clarity? I am trying to discern clearly what is it that we are differing on, if we are, and what is it that we may be agreeing on, if we are. Firstly, do we agree that there is in fact a right to this communal land, that there is in fact communal land?
Yes. I agree with that.
We signed up to the convention. Belize did. So we cannot now say we are not, because we did.
But how can we agree on something we don't even know what? We already said the communal land, communal is not properly defined. We have not defined communal. When do we give the Maya space in Toledo, or all the villages spread all over Toledo?
That's the other issue.
Communal land is defined internationally.
Yeah. What do we do about the Mayans who don't want
to make it in our legal system?
But what, before we get there, what do we do about the Mayans who don't want the communal land? They want a piece of land so that they can mortgage and make something for themselves.
And that's why I believe that it can coexist, because if you live in your house in a village, that's not communal land.
But that's having your cake and eat it too,
but
though.
What's wrong with that?
You can't have it both ways. No, you can't.
I still have that. Mr. Chairman, before I exit, sorry, I need your indulgence to leave, but I'd like to get a clarity before I leave, so I leave with some benefit. What is it that we are agreeing on, and what is it that we are differing? Are we differing that some are saying that there is no such thing and you are not supporting communal land rights? Is there such a thing that anyone is saying?
No.
All right, so we all agree that there should be communal land rights. The problem we have now in trying to define it and demarcate it. Is that the problem?
Yes, sir.
Not on my part. No, I have more problem. I have more concerns than that. But y'all go ahead. That 4-1, I can't say no. I don't agree on that. Get it. I am not clear as to what this communal land is, how it will work, who will get it, who will won't get it, and why they even want it. They already own all of Belize. As a Belizean, you own Belize. You can go do what you want to do. No, what we the issues of
I'm saying that if I take a position on this show that I am not supporting communal land rights, despite
then you're an enemy. You're an enemy.
No, man, let us finish. Despite the Caribbean Court of Justice endorsing the consent order, now I would have a right to take that position, but I have a responsibility to give the reason why I'm taking it. And that's what I'm trying to get over. We can differ. But if I'm differing with you, I have an obligation to explain the reason why I believe in what I believe in. So if you feel like you are not supporting communal land rights, then fine, despite the order of the court. Then we want to hear why you are not. Because quite frankly, my speculation, and this speculation, please, I find it difficult to understand from all the insight I sought that it will be extremely difficult to implement it. Conceptually and theoretically, it seems right under that convention that there is an indigenous rights, and there are 300 million people in the world now, according to the United Nations, that are in fact indigenous. I believe that the order will be difficult simply because of the circumstances in Belize, and that is what I would say. But we need to try to figure out what is it we are agreeing on, what is it that we are differing on, and why.
That will take the rest of the show.
Today was Indigenous Peoples Day, and I think this day also in 1965, Malcolm X was assassinated. So just those two tributes.
Anyway, listen, wonderful. I'm a one engaged Dr. Strong in our sociology conversation, because it'd be a shame for him to come on the winner with the try get a long time. Okay, that's not an easy man for tie down without just discussing some of that, because those problems also exist in Belize, sociological problem. I want Aria at another time for you to explain to me why we haven't decolonized, so to speak. That I want different topic for another time. But we need to take that up, because I don't know. Maybe I think the perception of it is more real than the reality of it. Because we are where we are.
I think she's talking from our legal system, or our legal structure is
the laws and whatnot.
Yes, the laws.
But you think they're antiquated?
Well,
it supports colonial structure.
Well, there are some things that are constant,
regardless of. We still call our land Krong land. All our remaining land.
Well, we're Commonwealth. We're still under the.
But can I comment? Could you allow me to speak on that? Sure. I cannot agree with that position you are taking, for the reason that when we went into independence in 1981 and we passed that constitution, there was a clause and an agreement in the law that all the provisional laws, or all the laws that existed at the time, would automatically be considered and presumed to be consistent with the Constitution. Now, if at any time any one of us believe that any of those so-called colonial laws are not consistent with the Constitution, we have all right to go to the court to seek to strike it down.
You have the court an attorney.
No, what I'm getting at is that to say that we have not decolonized, I don't think that is the proper way. Because if our laws are not consistent with the Constitution that we had a right to support, that we had at least the opportunity to say, yes, we are going to support this Constitution.
You frightened me. That was exactly what I was saying. Yeah.
Decolonization is not only legal, whatever. It's the language of the law. It's how it describes people. It's a right that it assigns. It's how people are excluded from an inclusive society. And we could start right with national anthem. Our national anthem does not describe an inclusive society. But I'll leave it at that because I want G
Well, I
Mike
want to leave
to
it at
go.
that also. I want to say
Yeah,
this. I want to say this to the sociologists, who I have a great respect for sociologists.
who the dragon word in for the longest. I'm
And I
sorry.
will go with this. What you need to decolonize is your mind.
Okay.
True.
What you decolonize your mindset.
Okay.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. I really enjoyed the show. Mr. Strawn, I wish I could have been longer to listen to you. Thanks.
Jerome, you're getting ready to say something.
Well, you know, I
Why your volume gone low?
mentioned about
Turn your volume up a little.
Jerome, but you're not hearing either. You hold on.
I remember the late Clinton Luna, who quite often I don't want to say angered by in terms of some of his columns in the Amandala newspaper because of what he had to say about the 10th of September and because of what he had to say about the national anthem. But I think one of the things we have to recognize about the national anthem is that it was reflective of a certain time, right? When in terms of Samuel Haynes, it was a certain time.
Is that your phone?
Yeah, it was
good.
with Samuel
now they're
Haynes. You know, he wrote that the poem at a certain time, and that one of the other things, especially in terms of going back to the Southern Maya, is that people were incorporated into Belize at different times, right? You have, first of all, the sort of the Creoles, right? And those sort of the original British settlers. Then you sort of have the caste war and the arrival of the refugees Maya and other Yucatecans from Mexico. Oh, before that, you have the Garinago, right? 1802, right, and so forth. And then later on, you have the people coming from the caste war. You have the East Indians, right? You have the Mayas, but you have people incorporated into Belizean society at different times and living in different parts of the country, right? Well, the closest one, sort of the British, were the Creoles, right? So I think we have to really take that into consideration, and there's a lot of effort to sort of revise Belizean history, and that will be difficult to do. I mean, some people have done it,
So
right?
who
Who do we sort of hoist up and say, well, this person or this group deserves more of a mention? So, for instance, the Mayas are Belize's first people,
I don't think
but in some ways, Creoles were the ones that built Belize. I mean, a lot of people
That's a good point.
want to hear this.
But I have a simple question for all of you. Were women around during any of that time?
Of course they were. They had to be around.
Because apparently
you're not going there tonight, though,
yes,
Aria. That's another.
were women around during that time? Because there's no mention of daughters and women. It's a damn.
But you know, God created man, male and female. Even if you don't agree with male and female, the man makes up man. So when you say man, you think about all.
Mike, Area is just poking you. Don't fall for it.
No. I mean, to go in that direction, you're really a murky the water now. Jerome, what we going to do about our social situation in Belize? What we going to do about the crime? What are we going to do about the kids that are coming up? I see a video today with some school kids fighting in uniform, going on crazy. And I'm saying, where are we now as far as that is concerned, which is, I believe, is a bigger problem than to try to appease the greed of some people. What we gonna do?
Well, I mean, that's a really difficult issue to address, and kind of I'm gonna give a little small story for a limited amount of time that we have. About 3 weeks ago, a gentleman by the name of Lincoln Sanders passed away. He was a scout leader at Wesley School, and my brother, when I told him, my older brother, he had passed away, And he's like, man, that ballet, I learned a lot from Mr. Sanders, right? Who was like 10 years his senior. And when Mr. Sanders was buried, a couple, I guess last week or the week before, there were very few people sort of went to his funeral, right? And there are a lot of people, some of them are doctors. Today, some of them had served in the BDF, had other important positions within Belizean society. And they were in Scout when Mr. Sanders was the Scout master. A lot of them are in the United States, but I bring that story up because when I was growing up in Belize, you have these sort of social organizations to where people went, brigade, scouts, and so forth. My older brothers were in it. One of my brothers, who's 2 years older than me, he went from scouting to boxing, right?
Yeah.
He trained under the great Gus Marin, right, at Independence Gym. And you had these different sort of institutions. You had, formal institutions like the Scouts and informal institutions where kids can go and sort of interact with other kids, and there was sort of more attachments to certain things in Belizean society. And as the sort of population grew, right, the lesser the attachments. We don't have the same types of neighborhoods as we do. People don't have sort of live long in these neighborhoods, right, and so on, to know each other and stuff. So that's one of the things I think the government, when the crime situation start taking off, I think that there, especially at UB, there should have been more formal studies done on sort of what's really happening here, right? And I don't think that people kind of speculate, but they really didn't study these things.
But having that
And
happen,
a lot
though,
of times what happens too is that sometimes some of the stuff that we believe about crime, some of the answers are kind of counterintuitive. Yes, economic conditions are responsible, is a significant factor in creating creating the breeding ground for criminal activity. But there are other factors as well. There are cultural factors and there are social factors as well. And I think that the Belizean government from way back should have been paying more attention to a lot of these things. Or maybe they have, I just don't know.
Single family
Right?
household have been one
well,
of the
that
greatest
there it
contributors.
is. Gregory is putting his finger on the fact right here. The family, because forget all of that. There was communication in the home. Parents knew what you were doing. Everybody knew everybody else. So that is a big part of it. Now everybody's again in their own little cocoon, and nobody cares about what's happening with the other person. So that might be why the funeral wasn't well attended. Many times these institutional people pass and nobody even know.
Mhm.
So that was a sad thing. We don't communicate like although we have Facebook and social media that makes it so easier. We have Google, so easy to research anything. You can find out anything you want, but we're not doing that. We play TikTok. We enjoy TikTok.
Yeah, you don't really have the social bonds that people really used to have, right? I mean, a lot of people, like in the United States, cite that classic text, "Bowling Alone" by Robert Putnam, to show that people used to be part of bowling leagues and they used to participate in different activities, and they no longer do so. In Belize, that has a lot of greater consequences, right? I used to have the lodge, right? And people were sort of had social networks based on these connections, right? It was a working class. The lodge was mostly working class, but you had middle class people in there as well. And that's a formal institution. You had a lot of these things. And I think after like the late 70s, early 80s, you have international migration. Then you have sort of residential mobility within Belize City, right? People are moving to Kings Park or even further. And I mean, it's within my own family. I came to America. One of my brothers stayed in the States, but he moved to Kings Park. My own neighborhood is not the same. Then the older people kind of died off. Then there are newer people, and they don't really have the same kind of connection. They're sort of rapid turnover quite often. It's like, who lives over there now? It's like, well, we don't really know, right? And that makes a big difference. Is how sort of you kind of construct the society, right, and so on, the social networks and stuff. And I think we should have paid more attention to a lot of these things.
The migration of immigrants coming has kind of disrupted that assimilation that normally would have seen the rapid.
That's a part of it too, and not the Mayans because they were here, right? So
no, not the Mayans.
But I always felt that there are two things.
Maybe some Mayans too, but because a lot of them keep coming over from Guatemala.
I believe you're going to get in that trouble right there directly. I believe there are two things that human beings really need to do. One is socialize, gather together, these little clubs that you were talking about. The next is to compete. We need to be competing with each other. Yes. So these are things that drive us forward as not only as a country, but as people, as individuals ourselves. This was my concept in creating a little park where the kids could at least come together and play. And some of them have been over there for 10 years together, and I've seen them grow together. And it's amazing. We need more of that. We need to have places. Go ahead.
I mean, with your park, it's a great thing because I think it's a sense of place, and that it's going to be there. It's like I always say with Los Angeles, how we in Los Angeles don't have the same sense of community like we used to have, right? Because in the old days, I remember those guys used to hang out at a certain park and play basketball. It's like, you know what? If I drive around Adams and such, they're going to be around there, right? Day after day, week after week. Somebody is playing dominoes or Shirley Jacks or whatever. In the park, Charlie Burton Park that you created a sense of place, right? There's formal and informal institutions. People sort of get there's a bonded by these kind of places and so forth. And more of these things, right, need to be created. You need more open space in Belize. There's a lack of, you have Vernon Street Field has been spruced up and so forth. You need more kids in sports, more kids in other types of meaningful activity.
Match field
between the hours of 3 o'clock and 7 o'clock or whatever.
You know, Jerome, there's a gentleman that has not gotten enough credit, Pilaf. I don't know if you know him.
Yeah, I've heard of
Yabra, that man.
Yabra, yeah.
Working for years. He got them kids and he grow them up and they go out and play in other teams and whatnot. But he's consistently there every evening. He got ball for them to play with. He got advice to give to them. That's something that needs to happen more places around the city, because we have people in here. I've been saying this for a long time. We have 10 constituencies. If these politicians want to really do something, sponsor a lead team in every constituent, and have these people play against each other, compete, because it's necessary that when build camaraderie, they become friends instead of the fighting. All you have to do initially to have proper security there. But it can be done, and that might be one way. But outside of that, is there anything else you think we can do that we're not doing?
Sometimes it takes a lot more. I gotta think about certain things before it's like it doesn't come immediately to me. Right. Sometimes I look at the proliferation of weapons in Belize, other things, and so forth. I can't really think of anything else, but I'm sort of looking at the positive role that it seems like the crime rate or the murder rate has sort of declined over the last year, right? Which is a great thing. I'd like to find out, for instance, what Commissioner of Police has done, in terms of the crime rate. I look, for instance, at, the old days, not only in terms of fewer sort of murders occurring, but the sort of how these murders are occurring, right? People getting, killed with sort of knives and ice picks, right? You didn't have a lot of handguns, right? And then by the early 80s, you had a lot of proliferation of handguns. right? And there is a tendency for people to focus on all these gangs and not realizing that you could start a gang in Belize. One person, two people with one gun could start a a gang in Belize. So we sort of, the way in which we do research on these things, sometimes for me it has to be really improved.
How
We
do
kind
you
of say, it's like we have all these gangs. You have to look at the proliferation of handguns.
how do you
So you look at it
respond?
in a different way.
How do you respond to the person that says guns don't kill people, people kill people?
In some ways you can say that, but also you could look at, then you'd have to do the cross sort of national comparisons of looking at a place like, say, Switzerland, where they have a lot of handguns, but the murder rate is down. So then you have to go to sort of a cultural explanation, right, of why so in a place like the United States you have such a high murder rate, right? Whereas in some societies where people do have greater access to guns, but they're not so much, the number of murders don't really is not really high, right? And we once had a culture, we did have sort of a culture whereby you had all these murders. I mean, you can remember probably by the late 60s, early 70s, and so on, right? Compared to, say, some country like Jamaica, you didn't have as many murders in Belize.
Let me tie this into the discussion we had earlier, because one part of it is the disagreements between people. And again, if you the competition is so important that if you don't create a positive competition, you will have the negative competition where gang against gang, neighborhood against neighbor. But if we have this Maya situation, what it is, and we have this kind of antagonistic back and forth, some people are really getting belligerent, then these are some of the things that contribute to the increase in violence. Because I meet you, I know, like you done the talk crazy to me. You don't want Maya, you don't want Creole, you don't want Garinagu, and you. I mean, these are some of the things I think that also drive this phenomenon.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, again, like I had said earlier, in terms of the Mayan land rights thing, first of all, there's power in numbers. People feel emboldened. They could hold up the sort of, we have this Caribbean court judgment that we sort of won. And,
beat you over your head
you
with
can see the same thing in the United States, the sort of the frustration. You have the nonviolence of Martin Luther King giving way to sort of the more militancy of sort of the Stokely Carmichael. So in sort of Christina's, her speech that she gave a couple of weeks ago, she was trying to sort of empower her own community. I mean, that's kind of in some ways it's kind of expected, but the thing is that we Belizeans, we live in I'm over here, but Belize is a multi-ethnic country where people live in close proximity with each other, right? And we've never been down this path before. So how are we going to really solve this?
I want to challenge Dr. Strawn's language by using the word embolden. People are constitutionally entitled to lobby their government, and they're constitutionally entitled to protest and to raise issues without a doubt. What they're not entitled to do is to threaten people or to threaten to assault people. So I think the word embolden almost sounds very, and I know you guys might not agree, but it sounds like we should not expect that the Maya should be like this, because historically we did not encounter, we encounter more of what we think was quiet, peaceful type communities. And always tied to, which was unpopular to the churches, you look at Caleb Orozco. Likewise, the Constitution gives certain people, and not certain people, give everybody the same rights and entitlement. What I think in Belize that we don't like as much as we cuss government all day, we not like when people challenge government. What the Mayas are living is a very remote area. Most people in Belize will never see that area, will never visit that area.
You drop things like that. You drop things like that with no explanation. You people don't like to see the government being challenged.
Right.
I don't get that. I don't get
when Caleb Orozco challenged the government.
That is the time one situation that has a lot of other.
But that was a law. That was not.
But I don't think that more than that. There was a cultural challenge that was put up there, and you have to understand people. I don't think it was because the government was being challenged. That's what I'm saying.
He was challenging a law. It's a legal challenge. Likewise, Belize signed on to a lot of. Let me tell you, Belize has signed on to a lot of international human rights agreements that they have not enforced or written it into our law. So what the Maya did, they challenged the government. They have signed on to this. As a Belizean living abroad, the definition of citizenship can be challenged too, because Belize has tier citizenship. It's unequal. Everybody is not the same under Belize law.
You know what's funny? Now you can't drop thing like that, man. We're almost out. I really wanted to have some time to get to that, because you and Jerome some issues on that. But you can't just drop it and run past it like that, man. Like that. We're out of time. Jerome, 2 hours I want to invite you back at some other point, man. And then we are dealing.
That was good, Aria.
Yeah, you're right. Wasn't it? I want job though. But we could deal with this for another time. And we could deal with the whole diaspora issue and the whole second-hand citizenship kind of thing. DJ. Guys, we're out of time. I want to thank you very much for joining us. Respect every time. Enough love.
All right, take care now.
All right, see you later.
This is a request.
Yo, what the baddest mix this? No man tell me nothing.
Racism is alive and well. If we as black people and people of color get ourselves together, form some kind of unification, foundation, we talk economically to capitalism. It's real. Listen to me, Lord. Racial profiling. It's a serious thing. A bird without wing. Racial profiling. Listen, me king, this on your top of ranking. Racial profiling. It's a serious thing. A bird without wing. Racial profiling. I saw the thing set in a this system. I cannot breathe. Living while black, much less gonna Starbucks. Living while black, up against the clan. Living while black, life in my hand. Living while black, Calamus in we under constant attack. Master race, master plan, the drive me, hold me back. Smoke it on, little rhythm, give me one drop. Your movements, they just can't stop. I cannot sell water as a POC. Hermit party will call the COP. I cannot enter a pool as a POC. Pool patrol parlor calling the COP. If I am grilling in the park as a POC, barbecue Betty will call the COP. If I check into an AR and B, my persuasion cannot be a for POC. Racial profiling is a serious thing. Burning out wing. Racial profiling. Listen, me king is on your top around king. Racial profiling. It's a serious thing. Burning out wing. Racial profiling. Them feeling emboldened. Showers them taking is golden. Y'all them lips loose like Snowden. Like they don't know say we are the chosen. Them entitled and privileged. Them could call another human race savage. This nothing but a sacrilege when we get used as collateral damage. Racial profiling, it's a serious thing. Bird without wing. Racial profiling. Listen, me king, this on your top of ranking. Racial profiling, it's a serious thing. Bird without wing. Racial profiling. So the thing set in a this.
Yo, this is another Doom Man freak. Hell yeah, you listening to another music production.
I had hard times, real hard times. Swear I had to grind, swear I had to grind. Swear I'm losing memories. I'm too focused on my enemies.
With a song dark, boom me song for your car. Song dark, me beg you easy start. Song dark, you know we crisp and clear. We don't want no fuss, no fight, we don't need no tribal war. Song dark, boom me song for your car. Song dark, me beg you easy start. Song dark, crisp and clear. We don't want no fuss, no fight, we don't need no tribal war.
I'm in charge now, I'm the boss now. What it costs now, ain't a loss now. I do this for my trappers and my gamblers. When you ain't got money, gotta scramble up. When I'm moving now, money too ample. For the record, this a sample. What I can do, my nigga, what you can't do. When it come to this money, I'ma trample. Anything moving if it can't do. This is a massacre, I swear to God I'm losing it. I just gave you the wave, what you do with it. My last few bars, they've been proving it.
Beeb said, play your position. Don't make nobody live free in your mind or in your mansion. They need to stop, they make assumption. Free bars stick like gumption. Chop.
Boom, peel it off, give the technician time for peace, the hook up. Big mistake, we judge the content by the cover and not read the book. Boom, peel it off, give the technician time for peace, the hook up. Big mistake, we judge me by the color of my skin and by the way how I look.
Then they try rob we culturally. We wax lyrically, spiritually, truthfully. Exposing evil spirits and hypocrisy. We do this habitually. Keep the mental vibes up at any party. Levels to my chef game is type culinary. Dropping so many gems they call me jewelry. We no need no chat GBT. We do this organically.
Boom, peel it off, give the technician time for please the hook up. Big mistake, we judge the content by the cover and not read the book. Boom, peel it off, give the technician time for please the hook up. Big mistake, we judge me by the color of my skin and by the way how I look.
Bob say, if they turn tonight, you would have find out how much people they hate you just for spite. We good on this side, so they could have hate with all their might. Hate we cause we bars tight. Cause me and my team they catch Lee light. Don't try bring your feelings to this fuck fight. Call me Cleveland when a time for take flight.
Boom, peel it off, give the technician time for please the hook up. Big mistake, we judge the content by the cover and not read the book. Boom, peel it off, give the technician time for please the hook up. Big mistake, we judge me by the color of my skin and by the way how I look.
Then they try rob we culturally. We wax.
Cinco side, them gal fire. Pull up on the block, rocking Kingdom attire. Cinco side, them gal fire. Pull up on the block, rocking Kingdom attire. Cinco side, them gal fire. Pull up on the block, rocking Kingdom attire. Cinco side, them gal fire. Pull up on the block, rocking Kingdom attire.
Cinco side, cinco side, cinco side, cinco. Cinco side, cinco side, cinco side, cinco. Cinco side, cinco side, cinco side, cinco. Cinco side, cinco side, cinco side, cinco.
Cinco side, them gal fire. Pull up on the block, rocking Kingdom attire. Cinco side, them gal fire. Pull Pull up on the block, rockin' Kingdom attire. Cinco side, them gal fire. Pull up on the block, rockin' Kingdom attire. Cinco side, them gal fire. Pull up on the block, rockin' Kingdom attire.
Most jelly, jam no shake like that. And most lava because fire no hot like that. Body organic, that gym squats that. 0% fat, woman. Straight savage, thicker than a snicker from out of my fridge. The way she have the thing, they swing like big bridge. Me have to tiptoe for gain leverage.
Cinco side, them gal fire. Pull up on the block, rockin' Kingdom attire. Cinco side, them gal fire. Pull up on the block, rockin' Kingdom attire. Cinco side, them gal fire. Pull up on the block, rockin' Kingdom attire. Cinco side, them gal fire. Pull up on the block, rockin' Kingdom attire.
Cinco side, cinco side, cinco side, cinco. 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 5 and then 6. Girl, flex, time for have. Make we just chill on Netflix. Now make the outside nice, create no conflict. Hating pan, we loving relationship. We have to stay wide from the toxic drip. Plus style grip, have me the pop off like a rocket. You and me wifey and me side chick. Read the pamphlet. Read the pamphlet.
Sauce from the Pharaoh, I do this for my kings, rocking Kingdom apparel. Sauce from a Pharaoh, I do this for my queens, rocking Kingdom apparel. Sauce from the Pharaoh, I do this for my kings, rocking Kingdom apparel. Sauce from the Pharaoh, I do this for my queens, rocking Kingdom apparel.
Don't need to recount the votes. I'm here to destroy all your hopes, dreams, aspirations. It's like poetry with musical inclinations. I see you peripherally, breathe easily, step lightly like on eggshells, or see real shells. I ring bells, bling bling is green. Don't necessarily need to be seen, but I do need to be heard. In my brain I've accumulated mucho verbs. I'm taking herds to the third curve, tentacles reaching up into the suburbs. 10 o'clock, do you know where your child is at? Inside of a room, all black, grown men beats, that's where we at. As I stack chips, pockets ain't made of glass, so you can't see me dip.
Sauce from the Pharaoh, I do this for my kings, rocking Kingdom apparel. Sauce from a Pharaoh, I do this for my queens, rocking Kingdom apparel. Sauce from the Pharaoh, I do this for my kings, rocking Kingdom apparel. Sauce from the Pharaoh, I do this for my queens, rocking Kingdom apparel. Came from the water, evaporated moisture. Wavy wave in here, I do it for the culture. Cypher, music, I do this. 2023, still moving with a movement. BK where I came from, but the BX raised me in 2015. I became wavy, named by SP. The streets never changed me. I just work smarter, I just work harder. Wanna be Nino, so I need a Carter. So I moved to Harlem, that's where it all started. Discovered my flow, and I became a problem. Can't solve them, why would you want to? I do what I want to, you do what you can do. When it come to bars, I'm lit like a candle. Sauce from the Pharaoh, I do this for my kings, rocking Kingdom apparel. Sauce from a Pharaoh, I do this for my queens, rocking Kingdom apparel. Sauce from the Pharaoh, I do this for my kings, rocking Kingdom apparel. Sauce from the Pharaoh, I do this for my queens, rocking Kingdom apparel.
Plus, I've got no area. I'm scarier than rebels in Somalia. Fools be thinking my last name, it's Ochoa. Supplier, mozzarella. Observe as I bum rush the Federal Reserve. Sensory overload, making you victim of my venom. Breaking down your molecular structure before I digest even. Instant paralysis, I'm crazy swift with this. You're on my hit list, I'm on your chick's wish list. Because of this ability to strike repeatedly. Stay coiled, fools test this and boils. I bring freaks out at night like the gargoyles.
Source from the Pharaoh, I do this for my kings, rocking kingdom of power.
That the Fred don't say, all haters could just raise up like they got yeasty on it. Incognito, like Nick Romano. We live with life in a stealth mode. Off for them pics when we touch road. No half a clip, we carry the full load. We keep the pedal to the metal, the flow board. We live life in a stealth mode. Cause enough for them pics when we touch road. No half a clip, we carry the full load. We keep the pedal to the metal, flow board. You like the game, but the game not like you. You only talk big when you're dead long with your crew. But when you're solo, in the morning do. Skip to me loo. Remember say, we come up from mud. We not just plaster, we apply mud. Girlfriend tick like mud. You cannot stop the blessings we come from above. We live with life in a cell. Disappear for a while, but now I am back again, introducing a new style, them call the Ling Bang. I am a musical zen, violating the charts again. Disappear for a while, but now I am back again, introducing a new style, them call the Ling Bang. I am a musical zen, violating the charts again. Ling Bang, no matter if you're 50 or 10, Ling Bang. Big bully in a pen, Ling Bang. Rooster or hen, this one, yeah. Creme de la creme, Ling Bang. No matter if you're 50 or 10, Ling Bang. Big bully in a pen, Ling Bang. Rooster or hen, this one, yeah. Creme de la creme. First, make you see how far your back bend. If you don't know how, get less if I can rent. Turn your body wrong, like a smoothie or the blend. New dance trend. Style we no borrow, style we no lend. For sure, we no the beg no friend. From in the thing far way back when for the elders and the children. Can't do the thing till they gonna to do it like charge. Back it up in the garage. Make they know we squad living large. Hold a salute every sarge. Disappear for a while, but now I am back again. Introducing a new style, them call the Ling Bang. I am a musical zen, violating the charts again. Disappear for a while, but now I am back again, introducing a new style, them call the Ling Bang. I am a musical zen, violating the charts again. Ling Bang, no matter if you're 50 or 10, Ling Bang. Big bully in a pen, Ling Bang. Rooster or hen, this one, yeah. Creme de la creme, Ling Bang. No matter if you're 50 or 10, Ling Bang. Big bully in a pen, Ling Bang. Rooster or hen, this one, yeah. Creme de la creme. We like when you shake it. Never gonna DR, we can't fake it. Entire yam, authentic. Mama take 9 months to make it. Act like you didn't need Johnny cake before you bake it. Take a pass to the cars, then twerk it. Then your style you can't buy the new market. All of the styling bang surpass it, yo. Watch when they blaze it. Have the tremble like we don't tease it. Tell the DJ, rewind it. Bust a sweat and work it. Disappear for a while, but now I am back again, introducing a new style, them call the Ling Bang. I am a musical zen, violating the charts again. Disappear for a while, but now I am back again, introducing a new style, them call the Ling Bang.
I am a musical zen, violating the charts again. Ling bang, no matter if you're 50 or 10, ling bang. Big bully in a pen, ling bang. Rooster or hen, this one, yeah. Creme de la creme, ling bang. No matter if you're 50 or 10, ling bang. Big bully in a pen, ling bang. Rooster or hen, this one, yeah. Creme de la creme. From Baka Jungle all the way to Yara, Corozal and Dangriga. Check for my sister Julia, teaching the tourists the key kaka. Through the alley and the plaza, no jump past 41-mile marker. If you want something extra, I want you that feel Librata. Be for a while, but now I am back again, introducing a new style, them call the Ling Bang.
Please that people, in the 23 years, Berry King, La Ruta Maya history. Who are the baddest partner who ever see? Berries! Who? Berries! Yo, I see why this alongside the swingers. Yeah, me old star. Who might win the battle? What are we win the war? We can do, we go to Kevlar.
Champion, I realize Pac-Man Rasta Bira make they know that just so we function. Jaja plan, organic conception. Rasta Bira moving like an army of one. People champion, I realize Pac-Man Rasta Bira make they know that just so we function. Jaja plan, organic conception. Rasta Bira moving like an army of one. This year one year. One man in a polluted east, ruling the root of Maya. So survivors, psychics could handle pressure. Even when they bout it, we still no go under. We no feel the good. Last year we no feel the Japan nor the one they from China. We have fans all over, Ungarazal and Liga. CY and Francis that we sponsor. Living up this stamina, we see our could I win this race in one hour? No problem. We don't be back like the unknown sun. Because back when the battle hit the water, no retreat, no suffering. To a many people, there's something we remember. We don't follow trend, we that trendsetter. Definition after Rasta Bira. Rasta Bira is the people's champion. I realize Pac-Man Rasta Bira make they know that just so we function. Jaja plan, organic conception. Rasta Bira moving